All right, so we're recording, we're ready to go. So I just wanted to very quickly kind of talk about my intentions, my purposes, my goals for this first lunchtime library webinar, our first in three-part series. So today it's going to be kind of the least exciting of the three, because what I want to do today is provide a broad overview of all the resources and services that are available to students, faculty, and staff um, online. So certainly there are other services that are available when we think about those who might be on campus, who are residential, but I really wanted to boil this down to the lowest common denominator of all things online, which is really robust. If it's a lowest common denominator, there's a lot going on online. And so there's really very little that happens within the library in terms of our resources and services that is not available to everyone through the internet. So the approach today is just to use the library webpage as a springboard, as a starting place. And the goal, what I'm going to do here is just kind of go down the page here and point out the features and the services, and then we'll come back up at the end and take a look at the navigation menu because there are some extra points there that I want to touch upon to round things out. So without further ado, um, I always want to start off by making sure that everybody knows how to get to the library's webpage, right? I know that within D2L, there are links to the library's webpage in several places, and so you can certainly access the library website or the library webpage through any of those links in D2L. If you go to the college's webpage, smwc.edu, there is that ribbon at the top where there is an option to click on Rooney Library in one of the offices. We have a very handy, friendly URL, which is library.smwc.edu. So you can just type that into your browser and it will bring you to this page. And then if all else fails, you can always Google SMWC Library, and the very first link that will come up will bring you to this page. So however you want to get to it, all of those methods will bring you to this one resource. Of course, you know, it's the most invaluable resource probably that you will ever use in your college career. So you'll bookmark it, make it your homepage, all of those things so that you have a very quick and easy access to it. So let's go ahead and start scrolling down the page here and talking about resources and services that are available. So there's our lovely mission statement there at the top of the page. That's, you know, for accreditors and things like that. So we'll just scroll on past that. And the very first thing we're gonna encounter here is our search box. So think of this as kind of a library version of a Google search. It's not as comprehensive as a Google search would be, and there are some limiting things that are happening behind the scenes here, but just kind of approach this search as something like a Google search. So, you know, when we think about searching in with Google, we know that we're going to get back, you know, millions of search results. So whenever we're searching here in this search box, know that the number of results you get back, if you just come here and start doing your searching, is going to be probably more than you want. So I would recommend that you use this particular search feature in a couple of ways. So if there is a work that you know of, so you have a certain article, a certain book, and you just want to know if the library has it, you want to know if you have access to it, then I think this is a great tool to use. And so I'm going to copy and paste the title of an article here. And note that when you do that, I would recommend placing that in quotation marks. So do use double quotation marks. We found out that a single quote just doesn't quite work. So place the title of the article or the book in double quotation marks and then execute the search, and you'll see if we have access to that particular work. So this works the same for books and all of that. So there is that article that I searched, and I see that I do have it, and there's my PDF full text link. So I want to come back and show you a book title because it will look just a little bit different maybe sometimes. So here's my book title that I want to see if I have this in the library, and we do. But the link will look just a little bit different. So instead of that PDF full text, I have a link that's labeled View Full Text. What that tells me is that That particular work is not available full text on this particular interface, but it is available to me in another library database. So if I click on that link, it will give me the link to that book on the platform where I do have access to it. So if you see that view full text link, be encouraged and know that you do have access to the content. It's just on a different interface. So another way that you could use this, and I'm not going to do this particular search. Another way that you can use this particular search box is if you have a research topic that is very focused, it's very narrow, nuanced, esoteric, and maybe you've done some searching already and you're just not finding a whole lot of content, then that's when I would advise that you use this central search box because, like I said, it's like a Google search. So it's going to be much more comprehensive in the sources that it goes to search for the content. And so you're likely to see some results, whereas maybe in some other databases, if you're doing that type of search, you're not getting anything. So for known items, that's a great option to use that search box. And then if you have a very esoteric research topic, then that's another great use of that central search box. Otherwise, I would recommend that you begin your searching in subject-specific or discipline-specific databases. So here we have a link to get to all of our databases. It's the same link that's up in the menu here on the left-hand side. So either one of those will bring you to our A to Z list of databases. So these are all of the online resources that are available to you. So you can filter this list in a couple of different ways. So you can filter it by subject. So if you're only interested in, business databases, then you can use that subject drop down and just kind of get the most recommended, most helpful, most relevant databases to search for business topics. And you can also sort this by resource type. So if for some reason you're just looking for streaming video, then you can filter the list down to these few databases where we have streaming video content. So filter that in whatever way makes most sense to you. You really don't care about vendors. That's pretty much just for me on the library side of things. But those are some helpful ways to filter that list. You can also do a search here. So if you just want to, instead of filtering by subject, you can type in business there and it will bring up relevant business databases. That's also helpful if you are in a course where perhaps the instructor is referring to a database by a name that maybe was a previous name that was used. And so we do have in some instances alternate names that are previous names of databases. So for example, Nexus Uni used to be called LexisNexis. And so you can type in LexisNexis there and it will bring up that Nexus Uni database because there's a note there that says this is an alternate name for that database. So those are ways that you can filter and leverage that particular resource list. One thing to note about accessing our databases, so on campus or off campus, the first time that you access these things, you'll have to authenticate. So what that means is you have to demonstrate to the supplier of the content, the vendor, that you're a legitimate user, that you're currently affiliated with a college in some way, whether you're a student, a faculty member, a staff member. This is a process that they have us put in place so that they know only those who are entitled to have access are actually getting through and getting to the content. And so that's all called authentication. So you have to authenticate before you get into these databases. We recently changed this to make it very easy and very streamlined so that whenever you're prompted to authenticate, at whatever point that may come, you are just directed to that SMWC branded Microsoft sign-in page. And you're just going to use your SMWC email address and then the password that you have associated with that as just kind of that quick intermediate step to pass you on to the database. So you may or may not see that depending upon where you are in the process of using things online. So if you've already signed into another online service like D2L or you already signed into your email address, you may not see that pop up at all. Or you may see a very quick version of that where you just select your account and then you pass through. So just know that there is that little step that you will encounter at some point in the process and that it could be varying levels of clicks and entering data on your part. So if you're having troubles with your sign-in, so sometimes we save our logins and our passwords on our browsers, and it may be that you encountered error message because your password is now expired and you've updated it, and it's retaining that old password in your browser savings. So you may have to do those types of changes. But if you have any problems with your login, then you could reach out to the help desk and they'll be happy to troubleshoot that with you. So there's their phone number and then the email address if you want to connect with them if you're having troubles with that. So our hours, so we list there today's hours, and then you have the option to view probably more than you want to know about our hours by clicking on that link and scrolling through here. So for the next 3 months, you can see what our hours are. So certainly, if there are any changes to regular operating hours, then those will be posted here. This calendar is always up to date. So if we're going to be closed for a holiday or a break, that will be listed there. And we also post any closings on our social media accounts, and I'll get to that in just a minute. So this Ask the Librarian, these are just, you know, the ways that you can connect with us. So if you have any question, you need some help, these are the methods that are available to you. So you can send us a text message. So we do have the ability to text with you. I would say, you know, keep in mind the nature of texting as you use that to ask questions. So that's, you know, if you just want to know when we close, that's a great thing to text. If you have some books checked out, you want to renew those or something, that's something that we can communicate and handle very easily through text messaging. I would say, you know, it's probably not a good idea to text something like, how do I get started doing my literature review for my thesis, right? That's a pretty in-depth, detailed, involved question. And so, you know, you might want to use one of these other means to communicate with us if you have a really in-depth or complicated question. So kind of save the textings and make sure that that's appropriate for that method of communication. There's our email address and our phone number. And then you'll also notice down here in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, that's our chat widget, so you can chat with us. The chat is available during our regular operating hours, so from 8 to 10 today, that chat service is available and you can initiate that chat and get some assistance. If the chat is not available, you can submit a question through our ticketing system, and we'll review that whenever we come in the morning and respond to you in that way. But the long and short of it is there are lots of different ways that you can connect with us. So if you're struggling, if you have a question, know that we're here, we're ready to help you, and we would be happy to connect with you. So we do have social media accounts, as I mentioned earlier, so on Facebook and Twitter. On both of those, our handle or our login or whatever it's called is at SMWC Library. So we would invite you to follow us, like us on Facebook and Twitter. And like I said, we do post announcements about hours and closings and things on our social media accounts. So that's a good place to get that type of information. Special requests. So one of the first things listed here is interlibrary loan. So as you are probably aware, in March, we're going to have a whole session dedicated to the ins and outs, the nuts and bolts of interlibrary loan. So I would encourage you to join us for that session. In the meantime, so what interlibrary loan is that, you know, not every library can secure and provide access to every resource that is out there that exists. So realizing that, we as libraries have entered into these partnerships where we can and do provide content that we own to other libraries. So if in your research you find that there is a work, an article or something that is not available within our own collections, then you can initiate this type of request. There will be a link labeled request a copy that you click on, and it will initiate this request whereby we connect with another library and get the content for you and then send that to you. All of this is handled through a system called TAPASA, which is our interlibrary loan management system. And again, in a couple of weeks or in a couple of months, we'll take an in-depth look at that. But just know that we have this system that's in place for you to manage all of these requests, to retrieve the documents, and so on and so forth. So some things to note about interlibrary loan. I think the most important thing is that it is a process. It's something that's not immediate. So when you're requesting some things like articles, give yourself a couple of days to be able to retrieve that item and get it in time to use it. And then for books, especially physical books, we say, you know, budget a good 7 to 10 days. Turnaround time is really dependent upon the library that receives the request and how quickly they respond to it. So while we say it could take up to a week to get some articles back, it could take potentially longer, but typically those things are filled within a day or two. So if that gives you any hope or encouragement, then there that is for you as well. That's also a service you can use to request documents that are within our own library. So if you're a distance student and you find some book in our collection that you really want, then you can use that system to request it. We'll check it out and mail it to you, and then you can send it back to us when you're done. Likewise, if there's a work in our collection that maybe you just want a chapter out of, then you would use that to request that we would scan that chapter and email that to you. So there are those document delivery type services that can be facilitated through Interlibrary loan as well. And then last of all, there's a purchase request. So if, you know, for some reason you think that there is a work that really needs to be in our collection that is not at present, then you can click on that, fill out that form, and let us know, and we'll consider that. So I'm going to go back up to the page here and quickly address the navigation menu. I'm going to work from the bottom up because we've already addressed that databases link. Contact us is just some additional contact information. What I like to point out here is our mailing address. So if you are in the situation where you request something from our library that we mail to you, then that's the mailing address that you would use to send that back to us. While we take care of the cost to ship things to you, you're responsible for the postage to get it back to us. And I always encourage you, if you're going to use like the United States Postal Service, request that you send those back via media rate or library rate. It's a little less expensive than first class mail. And once you get that sent back to us, we're not in that big of a hurry to get it back. So use whatever is most economical to ship things back to us. We do have an FAQ, so as the name implies, these are questions that we're asked a lot, and so we've created these canned answers so that you have kind of this self-help service here for some of these types of things. So we do get asked a lot how we get to master's theses or projects that are written, so there's a very quick answer with some links to help you with that. And then last of all, we have research guides. So these are kind of quick starts to get you going in your research. And they are listed here by academic program or department. So for every program that we have, we try to have a research guide where we can point you to resources to help you very quickly get going in your research. So all of these are designed in the same way, and mostly it is by source type. And the reason we did that is because generally in your assignment instructions, you're told to find a certain type or use a certain type of resource, whether they're journal articles, books, so on and so forth. And so that's the intention and the rationale behind the design of these. So by clicking on any one of these tabs, you're directed to that portion of the guide where certain databases are recommended. So these are kind of the top choice. So if you're just kind of struggling with picking out a database to use to do history research, then these are really great recommendations, great places to start. This doesn't mean these are the only databases that are relevant, but these are the ones that if you're just kind of really wondering where to start, these are ones that would be ideal to begin doing your searching. So in terms of the organization, most of them follow the same pattern, and then there is this placeholder here where they can diverge depending on the discipline. So in history, when you're doing historical research, primary sources are a big deal, right? So there's a dedicated section here on primary sources and databases that you could use to find primary sources. So in psychology, this extra section is dedicated to testing instruments. In music, we have some music databases in terms of, streaming audio and things like that. And so the research guides can diverge just a little bit here in this section, just again, depending upon the discipline and what might be relevant to that field and to research within that field. Then all of them will come back together in the same pattern with the citation help and the library help. So these are some resources that can be used to help you ensure that you're formatting your papers correctly according to the style that is most often used in that discipline. And then last of all of these will include this little library help. So there's my picture, yay. And then again, some contact information for reaching out to us. So you can email me directly from here. And then there's also the option here, excuse me just a moment while I look at this, where you can schedule an appointment. So right now, all of these appointments are online. At some point, we'll get back to the position where we'll be able to do these in person as well. But what you can do is come in here and pick a day and a time that works best for you. And then we will connect for 30 minutes and talk about whatever it is you need to talk about. So if it's with helping you maybe narrow the focus of your research question, we can chat about that. If it's picking some databases, doing some sample searches, just to make sure that you're on the right track with doing your research. For 30 minutes, I'm all yours, and we talk about whatever it is you need to talk about in terms of accessing and using the library. So for those of you who are planners, you really like to plan ahead, you can schedule these out several weeks in advance. And again, like I said, just pick whatever is most convenient for you, and we'll generate that appointment, and then we can connect in that way. So there is my very quick overview of online resources and services that are available to you. I am going to stop sharing here, and if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute and ask those. I don't see that there's anything in the chat as of yet either, but I am certainly open to any questions, comments, concerns that you would like to express. And like I said, this is probably the least exciting of the three presentations because we are just doing an overview of these services. So in February, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of doing searches and talking about how to approach that. And then again, in March, we'll really get into the weeds on interlibrary loan.
Thank you, Rusty, for setting this up for us and getting us started.
Sure. So Sharon has asked about the recording of this. So on the research guides on the library page, there is one listed for faculty. So there's faculty resources, I think is the name of it. The name of the guide begins with faculty. So there's a portion of that guide that lists tutorials. And so this one will be added there, and it will direct to the library's YouTube channel. And so that's where we'll put these recordings, and we'll really kind of flesh out and build up a repository of these types of recordings there. Academic Writer, that is a database by APA, the American Psychological Association. And that is a database that's dedicated to all things APA style. So if you want to direct students to that, what they'll find there are lots of different helps for writing in APA style. So there are examples of references, there are tutorials, quizzes, so on and so forth, to help them learn more about APA style, how to format references, and so on and so forth. They can also collect references there. So if they, especially for master's students, if they want some kind of bibliographic management solution, that database offers a good opportunity to do that. And then there's also this little feature there where they can actually write papers within that database. And they enable some collaboration features in there. And it is touted that they can embed citations very easily in APA or in Academic Writer, and even generate their reference list without having to do it themselves. I'm a little bit cautious about that, but you know, it claims to be able to do that. And the style is the latest edition of APA that's referenced and used throughout that database. And yes, please do share this in any way you want to with students. The idea of recording it was to enable that to happen. All right.
Is Academic Writer free for students?
It is. Academic Writer is free for students. They just would click on that link through the library to authenticate, and then they have access to that. And then, you know, to enable all of the features that I mentioned there, and tons that I didn't even mention, they would have to create their academic writer account. That's pretty easy and pretty straightforward, but that enables all those extra features about creating reference lists, writing papers, saving papers, and all of that.
That's great. Thank you so much for that.
Sure thing. All right, there are no other questions. Then thank you all for coming. I do appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to connecting with you again in a few more weeks to talk about doing basic searching. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.